Dr Seuss. Did I ever tell you how lucky you are? And this is Rocky, who is incredibly lucky. But you can sit down, boy. How about you sit here? That's a good boy. When I was quite young and quite small for my size, I met an old man in the desert of Dries, and he sang me a song I will never forget. At least, well, I haven't forgotten it yet. Yes, you haven't forgotten it either, I understand. He sat in a terribly prickly place, but he sang with a sweet, sunny smile on his face. When you think things are bad, when you feel sour and blue, when you start to get mad, you should do what I do. Just tell yourself, Ducky, you're really quite lucky. Some people are much more, oh, ever so much more, oh, muchly, much, much more unlucky than you. Be glad you don't work on the Bunglebung Bridge that they're building across Boomer Bay at Bunbridge. It's a troublesome world, and the people who are in it are troubled with troubles almost every minute. You ought to be thankful a whole heaping lot for the places and people you're lucky you're not. Just suppose, for example, you lived in Gazette and you got caught in the traffic on Zat Highway at. Or suppose, just for instance, you lived in Gazere with your bedroom up here and your bathroom up there. Yes, you wouldn't like that, would you, sweet boy? Suppose, just suppose, you were poor Herbie Hart, who has taken his throm-deambulator apart. He never will get it together, I'm sure. He will never know if the gick or the gore fits into the scrux or the snux or the snore. Yes, Ducky, you're lucky you're not Herbie Hart, who has taken his dom-deambulators apart. I don't like it when I take my dom-deambulators apart. You think you work too hard? Think of poor Ali Sard. He has to mow grass in his uncle's backyard, and it's quick-growing grass, and he grows as he mows it. The faster he mows it, the faster he grows it. And all that his stingy old uncle will pay for shoveling that mower around in that hay is the piffless pay of 2 dukelers a day, and Ali can't live on such piffless pay. So he has to paint flagpoles on Sundays and Grews. How lucky you are you don't live in his shoes. No, you don't even have shoes because you're a dog. And poor Mr. Bix every morning at 6. Poor Mr. Bix has his boffin to fix. It doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't seem right. But his boffin just seems to go schlump every night. It schlumps in a heap, sadly needing repair. Bix figures it's due to the local night air. It takes him all day to unschlump it, and then the night air comes back and it schlumps once again. So don't you feel blue. Don't get down in the dumps. You're lucky you don't have a boffin that schlumps. No, you don't have a boffin that schlumps either. Yes, good boy. And while we are at it, consider the schlots, the crumple-horn, web-footed, green-bearded schlots, whose tail is entangled with unsolvable knots. If he isn't muchly more worse off than you, I'll eat my umbrella. That's just what I'll do. And you're lucky indeed you don't ride on a camel. To ride on a camel, you sit on a whammel. A whammel, you know, is a sort of a saddle, held on by a button that's known as a faddle. And boy, if your old whammel faddle gets loose, I'm telling you, Ducky, you're gone like a goose. And poor Mr. Potter, T-crosser, I-dotter, he has to cross T's and he has to dot I's in the I&T factory out in Van Nuys. I'm not very good at dotting my I's and crossing my T's. And Rocky can't even hold a pen. Oh, the jobs people work out west near Hotch Watch. There's a Hotch bee watcher, and his job is to watch, is to keep both his eyes on the lazy town bee. A bee that is watched will work harder, you see. Well, he watched and he watched, but in spite of his watch, the bee didn't work any harder, not much. So then somebody said, our old bee-watching man isn't bee-watching as hard as he can. He ought to be watched by another hotch-hotcher. The thing that we need is a bee-watcher-watcher. Well, the bee-watcher-watcher watched the bee-watcher. He didn't watch well, so another hotch-hotcher has to come in as a watch-watcher-watcher. And today all the hotchers who live in Hotch-Hotch are watching the watch-watcher watching watching the watcher who's watching that bee. You're not a hotch-watcher. You're lucky, you see. He's a very lucky boy. And how fortunate you're not the Professor de Brise, who has spent the last 32 years, if you please, trying to teach Irish ducks how to read Javanese. And think of the poor puffing Poggleton horn players who have to parade down the Pogglehorn stairs every morning to wake up the Prince of Booboken. It's awful how often their poogles get broken. And oh, just suppose you were poor Harry Haddo. Try as he will, he can't make any shadow. He thinks that perhaps something's wrong with his giz. And by that, by golly, there probably is. And the brothers Bazoo, oh, the poor brothers Bazoo, suppose your hair grew like theirs happened to do. You think you're unlucky? I'm telling you, Ducky. Some people are muchly, oh, ever so muchly more unlucky than you. And suppose that you lived in that forest in France, where every young person just hasn't a chance to escape from the perilous pants-eating plants. But your pants are safe. You're a fortunate guy, and you ought to be shouting, how lucky am I? And speaking of plants, you should greatly be gladish that you're not Farmer Falkenberg's 17th radish. And you're so lucky you're not Gucky Gown, who lives by himself 90 miles out of town in the ruins of Ronk. Ronk is rather run down. And you're so lucky you're not a left sock, left behind by mistake in the caverns of Grok. Thank goodness for all the things that you're not. Thank goodness you're not something someone forgot and left all alone in some punkerish place, like a rusty tin coat hanger hanging out in space. That's why I say, Ducky, don't grumble, don't stew. Some critters are much, oh, ever so much, so much more unlucky than you. And Rocky's gone to sleep.